Guys, Wano. Love it or hate it, you have to admit that it is one of the biggest arcs in One Piece history. It's certainly the longest arc in One Piece history. But seriously, there was so much going on in Wano country that is still debated till today what are the best parts about it as an arc. I myself made a video about it 2 years ago now. I've been doing this for 2 years already? Damn. Detailing what I believe the best things about Wano are. But here's a great thing about opinions, guys. Everyone is entitled to them. So even though I may think that Marco the Phoenix is one of the best parts about Wano, not everybody thinks that. And because of that, when I see an article on CBR titled the top 10 best things about the Wano arc, you know I have to talk about it. And no, it's not just because it's about the time where I need to do an article review. So we're going to be going through their article today, looking through all their points, and actually deciding whether I agree with them or not. Or at least how many things I agree with them on. And if there's anything that I vehemently disagree with, well, that's the great thing about opinions. But before we can get to agreeing or disagreeing with anything, guys, I need y'all to do something. Like the video, okay? That's incredibly important. Subscribe to the channel for more One Piece content just like this every week. Share it around with all your friends who love the series. You know we always say here, let's get it going. Oh, and make sure you subscribe to me and my boys over at CSY. We have a huge video about to drop soon. Now, kicking us off at number 10 is going to be Oden's backstory set the stage for the present day. I am interested to see what they say because people's opinions on Oden's backstory vary. Oden's character was fantastic and helped put both Wano and the outside world into context. He was responsible for the formation of the 9 scabbards, the reason why many of them hadn't aged, and he's Momonosuke's true father. Additionally, Oden helped Roger find the One Piece through his encyclopedic knowledge of poneglyphs. As a result, the entire anime would not have been possible without his ability to translate runes and direct his comrades accordingly. Now, this point is less about Oden's backstory in general, more about Oden as a character, but I guess I mostly agree. It's definitely true that the legacy that Oden left was a long-lasting impact, something that not only Wano, but even the other people around the world still talk about to this day. I mean, you even have Akainu and Sengoku still talking about Oden's name as one of the feared pirates from that legendary era. It's also true that he was instrumental in finding the One Piece, so you know what? I'll say it. Without Oden, the entire story of One Piece just doesn't happen. Now, how do I feel about Oden's backstory itself is that, well, it still leaves a lot to be desired. I think that it was really good in showing us what other characters can do, and then hype moments of Oden like when he was fighting Kaido, but I think that it gave the post-time skip blueprint for what other characters' backstories would go on to do. Of course with Kuma, and then now even Loki's currently surpassing it in my mind. But still, good story. Authors starting off strong here, so let's see if I agree with their number 9, which is every Straw Hat made themselves useful at Onigashima. Let's read on. Previously, the Straw Hats served uneven roles in most arcs. There were so many characters to balance that half of the crew were even written out of the plot for years at a time. Which is true, a genuine criticism of a large part of the post-time skip era is that Oda has not been focusing enough on the Straw Hats and their development. It's part of the reason why Elbaf is so adored right now, because each person is actually getting a highlighted focus. However, Wano reunited the crew and ensured that each hero had a role to play. Even less appreciated characters like Brook and Chopper had their time to shine when scaring Orochi's forces and curing Queen's numerous plagues. And now I'm gonna have to agree to some extent. I definitely think that if you look at every Straw Hat in the Onigashima War, there was technically a role to be filled. Of course, Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji were always going to be a highlight, but a lot of them were also the primary fighters against the Tobiropo. And then, like they mentioned, Chopper had his whole nebulizer thing going on. Brook helped Robin in her fight against Black Maria, taking care of her goons. They weren't Orochis. And Usopp, well, he was Usopp. So is it true that the Straw Hats played a pretty large role? Yes, to some extent. But Onigashima isn't really what solved the problem that a lot of fans are thinking about when they're thinking about the Straw Hats. It's not just about, oh, can we just give them this fight? What are the actual plot threads that are tying them to the arc that's happening? That was okay that Brook didn't have much to do because he was literally the MVP of Whole Cake one arc before. And in our minds, we thought it was okay for Frankie to not because Egghead Island ostensibly was supposed to be his arc, which of course didn't end up happening. Same thing with Usopp. Right now, Elbaf is supposed to be his arc. Still also waiting for that to happen. So I kind of half agreed with number 9, but I definitely agree with number 8. Minor villains were given much more detail than previous arcs. In the past, villains were established as road bumps to be defeated. They seldom had much backstory or personality aside from a single gimmick, as seen in Enies Lobby's CP9 and Hody Jones's New Fishman Pirates. By contrast, Wano does a fantastic job of ensuring that the villains have depth and originality. And I'm not gonna lie, this is actually true. I made a video earlier this year detailing why the Beast Pirates are actually my favorite antagonist group of the series. And it's because despite them not all being as important as each other, they all have just interesting things about them. You can definitely tell that Oda fleshed out their characters a lot more than, say, Doflamingo's crew. You have King, of course, being not only Kaido's right hand, so you see their dynamic there with when Kaido saved him, but also in general him being a Lunarian, and that's our introduction to the Lunarian race, which still plays a big part today because of the Seraphim. Queen had immense ties into Sanji's story and was even the stepping stone that allowed Sanji to kind of realize what he's about. I mean, a funky robo dinosaur who may be Frankie's dad? Then you got Ulti and Page One, their sibling dynamic. Everything about who's who and him trying to be a rat. Sasaki seemingly has ties to Granny Kokoro and is a fishman. And then even Black Maria's laid-back nature, just want to be laid up on Kaido, whatever that's about. They were just inherently more interesting to me. And now, according to the author, the number 7 best thing that happened in Wano country is that the alliance with Law finally paid off. I have my thoughts, but I'm kind of annoyed at this one. Trafalgar Law was first introduced at the Sabaody archipelago. He formed an alliance with Luffy and Punk Hazard, hoping that they would combine their strength to take down Kaido. Such a plot was a decade in the running, with Law frequently calling Luffy's judgment into question. However, the battle for Onigashima saw the purpose of their alliance fulfilled. Law may not have defeated Kaido personally, though his efforts against Big Mom made Luffy's subsequent victory possible. Without the coalition, neither group would have toppled the Emperors. Now here's the thing, this is not false. It's definitely true that not only Law and Luffy coming together, but the whole Ninja Mink Samurai Pirate Alliance. Without all of those pieces falling into place, none of this would be possible. But the reason that I'm irritated is because why is that on a list like this? We're talking about the best things about Wano. Why is a pre-established plot point that we already know is going to happen on the list? You know what I mean? Like, we already knew that Luffy and Law coming together, it was gonna pay off because that was the point of the story. That was the point of the saga. I'm sorry, you did not cook with that one. But you may have cooked with number 6. The Minks returned with a vengeance. Having suffered dearly in the Zou arc, the Minks finally had a chance to avenge themselves during Onigashima. Considering that the Big Mom Pirates and the Animal Kingdom Pirates had joined forces, all of their enemies had been effectively corralled into one place. Better yet, the full moon enabled their enhanced form so that they could tap into the limit of their strength. This allowed them to unleash satisfying revenge on Kaido's forces and gave them closure for Jack's invasion of Zunisha. And I'm not gonna lie, this is definitely true. Ever since we got introduced to the Minks, they've been continuously done dirty. You have Jack's invasion of Zou, bringing out the gas weapon to take everybody out, dismembering the dukes and having them stringed up on crosses. All that brutality, spin back. Then on top of that, Whole Cake Island, because you got Pedro's story with him blowing himself up to seemingly take out Perospero, and that was such an emotional moment for Carrot, which led to her development in this. So again, during the Wano arc, spin back. My only complaint is that we didn't actually see more of a focus on Carrot herself. And yes, I was a person who definitely said Carrot for Nakama, but that's besides the point. For her to have been propped up so highly during the Whole Cake Island arc and then dropped during Wano, I think that was a travesty. But overall, yes, excellent Mink revenge. At this point, y'all, I want y'all to remember what the title of this thing was. The top 10 best things about the Wano Country arc. And I have to premise that because at number 5, the author has Kaido and Big Mom joining forces. Previously, the Whole Cake Island arc felt unfulfilling. While Luffy may have defeated Katakuri and copied a poneglyph, Big Mom and her children had yet to answer for their crimes. Big Mom's alliance with Kaido resolved a number of narrative issues. Not only did it enable her final defeat and exit from the story, it gave the Beast Pirates a boost in strength that they desperately needed. Without Big Mom's help, Kaido's forces would have had to fend off 3 members of the worst generation, the samurai, and an entire nation of Minks by themselves. Okay, I actually have a lot of problems with this. I just don't think that this is one of the best things to occur because when you really think about it, what role did Big Mom's crew really have? First off, in terms of Big Mom's final narrative defeat, I don't actually think that this is the last time we're seeing Big Mom. She has too much ties with the Giants and Elbaf to not come back. But on top of that, Big Mom provided the strength that Kaido's crew desperately needed. Mind you, Big Mom came essentially by herself. And yes, I know Perospero was technically there, but it doesn't matter. And that's not saying nothing because Big Mom is a Yonko just like Kaido and is a problem. But considering that randomly conveniently placed TNT did about 80% of the damage to take her out, I actually don't think that she's as big a deal as people would have made it out to be. Like, if she was removed, What really changes? Kaido would have been jumped by the rest of them. Kaido already showed that he could fight off all of them by himself. The rest of her crew weren't even there. They got kicked off the waterfall twice and were never heard from again. So I'm sorry, I have to disagree with this one. But hopefully I can agree with number 4, which is Luffy developing his skills in Udon. The Udon subplot enriched Wano in many fantastic ways. For one, it helped to develop Queen and what happened to those who crossed Kaido or Orochi. Additionally, it reunited Luffy with Kid, who formed an uneasy alliance. Perhaps most importantly though, Luffy's time in Udon gave him an opportunity to practice advanced armament haki under the careful supervision of Hyogoro. So one of the best things about the Wano Country arc, we're putting the Udon section. Ooh, that is a hot take that I vehemently disagree with. Was it nice to see Luffy training in haki? Yes, it was. Did we need the whole Sumo Inferno and Big Mom crashing through and all that for that to happen? No, we did not. And I mean, we're really trying to boil it down to Luffy reuniting with Kid? Reminder, Luffy met Kid once. Now, was this a phenomenal way to introduce Queen? Yes, I was enjoying his character for a while. I'm sorry, personally, the fact that it was crammed into the whole horde of nonsense that was Act 2 of Wano kind of just diminishes it in my mind. But now kicking off the top 3, we have something that was already basically addressed in point 10, which is the Wano arc brought back Roger and Whitebeard. Despite being important to the story, Roger and Whitebeard's deaths minimized the audience's opportunities to know them. However, the Wano arc excellently contextualized much of who they were through the time Oden spent with them. Moreover, it gave audiences a chance to witness the only clash between Roger and Whitebeard firsthand. This suggested that Whitebeard was stronger than the other emperors in his prime and could efficiently use advanced armament haki. Now, I do agree with the overall point that the Roger and Whitebeard section, specifically of Oden's flashback, were definitely a highlight of the arc. I mean, just like the author says, being able to see their clash definitely peak, but I don't really blame Oda for not giving us that much of Roger and Whitebeard here. It was a good contextual story, but you have to remember that this is Oden's flashback, which is why everybody was kind of the consensus that yeah, we're gonna see like a bit more of them, but a lot of what we're gonna get from them is gonna come later down the line, especially for Roger, for whom we can expect there's gonna be a dedicated Roger flashback. Now, number 2 is something that arguably should have been number 1, because that is, Gear 5 may be the peak of Luffy's potential. It had long been theorized that Luffy would have a 5th gear form. However, no one could have anticipated its true nature or that it would be the sole key in defeating Kaido. Luffy's discovery of Gear 5 unlocked the depths of his potential and greatly increased both his defensive and offensive capabilities. And while I don't agree with the way that they said it, yes, Gear 5 is peak. I mean, Gear 5 being the culmination of everything that represents Luffy as a warrior of freedom and liberation, to where his rubbery body makes sense because rubber is malleable and it's elastic, which allows him to fight free form. Saying it's the sole reason that he beat Kaido is a bit of a stretch because, I mean, there was a lot of things going on against Kaido. I mean, Luffy also mastered advanced armament and advanced conquerors in that fight, not to mention the 17 other people who jumped in prior. But yes, Gear 5 was definitely one of the best things about Wano. But is it the best? According to this author, no, because that is reserved for Kanjuro's betrayal. And I'll just let y'all know now, I vehemently disagree. Throughout the Emperor saga, there were many issues that didn't make sense. Jack's forces shouldn't have realized that the Minks were housing Raizo, nor should have Orochi been aware of the rendezvous point's true meaning. Kanjuro's betrayal made sense of these details, especially since he had been traveling with the heroes ever since Dressrosa. It also made for a satisfying final fight with the other scabbards. I'm not gonna lie, no, I really did not like Kanjuro's betrayal. And it's not because it didn't make sense, because yes, as they explain, it does technically fill in the plot holes, but we were so detached from Kanjuro as a character that by the time that it was revealed to be him, I was kind of just like, oh damn, that's crazy, but wow. And if I had even stopped there and they had taken him out the first time, I would be like, okay, at least it's something. But it's the fact that he kept on coming back that was really pissing me off. I'm serious, Kanjuro had like 3 deaths and then still also drew the Kazen bow. What are we talking about? Putting that as your number 1 thing above Gear 5? That's actually a bit of an issue. But y'all, it's time to hear from you guys. What do y'all believe is the best things about Wano? Or if you want to be a hater, what are some of the worst things? I don't discriminate, just put them all in the comments. That is the end of the video, y'all, but before we go, like it, subscribe, and share it around with all your friends who love the series, or anime and manga in general. Remember, trying to build a community, but I need your help to do it. That's all from me. I'll catch you on the next one, and always remember, one piece, one life.